Welcome back to the second of our Advent devotionals. How did you sleep last night? Now, I'm not prying, just wondering if you had any dreams. I occasionally have very vivid dreams. Just a few days before writing these thoughts, I woke feeling very disorientated. I dreamt that during a stay at the Salvation Army's famous Sunbury Court, I'd gone out for a walk and got myself lost in the woods. After desperately searching for a way back, I was rescued by some children who made me recite the junior soldier's promise as proof that I really was a salvationist. Now, what prompted that weird dream, I will never know.
The Advent and birth narrative features 4 significant and life-changing dreams. The first is recorded in Matthew 1:20, Joseph's dream. He was already committed to marrying Mary, but after learning of her pregnancy, rather naturally he decided to end the relationship. But in a dream, God stepped in, sending an angel to tell him that the pregnancy was not because she'd been unfaithful, but was planned by God and the miraculous work of the Holy Spirit.
We can't blame Joseph for worrying about what the neighbours might think. How many of us have been similarly influenced over the years? And perhaps the fear of what others might think may have stood in the way of us doing what God has prompted us to do. In God's plan, Joseph was as much chosen and equally obedient as Mary.
The second dream is found in Matthew 2, verse 12. The Magi, who we thought about last week, were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod after finding and worshipping Jesus. They weren't simple people. They were sophisticated and educated men. But they still needed God's guidance and direction. Rather than a sign of weakness, being open to God's leading and guiding is a sign of spiritual maturity, intelligence and strength.
Which brings us to dream number 3, which came after the birth of Jesus. With Herod perpetrating unimaginable evil in an attempt to wipe Jesus out, Joseph was told in a dream to take Mary and Jesus and escape to Egypt. It's not insignificant in these modern days of heated discussion about migrants and refugees that Jesus himself spent his earliest days fleeing in fear of persecution and living as a refugee.
And finally, dream number 4. In verse 19 of chapter 2 we read that the angel appeared again to Joseph in a dream, telling him that Herod had died and that it was safe for them to return to Israel. Another God moment and divine timing. For Joseph and Mary, as they headed back home, it was one of those no turning back moments, and another example of Joseph's attentive spirit and obedient heart.
4 dream moments and life-changing experiences which proved God's timing and his divine control. I don't know how God speaks with you. Perhaps it's through dreams, perhaps in another way. God has many ways in which he breathes or whispers into our hearts and minds.
As we journey through Advent, let us ask him again to grant us hearts that are glad to hear his voice and glad to respond to his leadings.